Today I'm sharing 7 tips to help the transition out of your job be as smooth and enjoyable as possible. Resigning is a big milestone in your career and it deserves a little planning so that you aren't a stressed out and exhausted mess when you show up on the first day of your new job. So grab a pen and paper, let's go. You're listening to the Career Change Podcast with career coach, mum and ex-corporate girl, Gina Hubbard. This is a no BS discussion about everything to do with your career, including how to make those hours at work happier, easier and more fulfilling so that you can get on with living the life that you want. So let's get going. Hey, welcome back to the Career Change Podcast. Today, I want to talk about resigning, handing in your resignation, breaking up with your job. But before I do that, I just want to ask a little favor. We are now a couple of months into the Career Change Podcast, and it would be super helpful if you could leave a review on any episode that you've listened to that you love on the app that you listen on. If you do that, it will help my little podcast get into the ears of the women who need it the most, those people who are really struggling, and every little bit helps. Even if you are able to give it some stars, depending on what app you listen on, you can give it stars. So yeah, if you can do that for me, I would really, really love it. I know that it can be a tricky thing to do depending, and each app is different. But look, I really do appreciate you guys listening. I really, really do. I keep track of the downloads and we are steadily growing bigger, which is so super exciting, and it's all down to you guys tuning in every fortnight. So thank you for your time. I see you and I love you. No, actually I can't see you, I promise. That would be super creepy, but you know what I mean. Anyway, back to the topic, shall we? That was not awkward. I want today to talk about the milestone of resigning from your job and give you some tips on how to do it if you want to leave with dignity and, shall we say, grace. Now, you don't have to do that for sure. You get to grab your personal belongings while screaming profanities at your manager and telling him exactly what he can do with his job. You can. You do you, for sure. If that's what you want to do, you go, girl. But word does get around, and as powerful and satisfying as that might feel in the moment, and as entertaining as it would be for your co-workers, it will probably be something that you'll regret later. So today, this episode, I really want you to take a different approach. I want to offer that there's a different approach to resigning, and I'm going to go through the things you need to know and think about before you take that big step. Okay, so the first thing to remember is that you're ending a relationship. And even though it's not like a friendship or a life partner, it is actually still a relationship that you have with the company and with all the people that you work with. And just like any other relationship, the way you go about ending things makes a huge difference for everyone involved. And it determines if you have to be on alert to dodge people when you go to the supermarket, right? Now, as much as you can't control how other people feel, you do get to decide how you approach this transition and how you treat other people, the compassion that you have for the other people involved, because you're leaving. Now, you might be in an environment where you just need to get out and you don't believe that anyone deserves your compassion, let alone your time and attention. And look, that is fair enough. I understand that completely because I've been in that situation. But you get to decide how you want to show up and how you go about this. And if you can't do it for the people you work with, then consider doing it for yourself. Give yourself some compassion. It will make a difference to how this transition goes, I promise you. The next thing I want you to think about is if it's really, really, really what you want to do. So, a new job, like any new relationship, wow, it's easy to get swept up, caught in the heat of the moment, so to speak. And the grass always looks greener on the other side. But have you carefully thought through the consequences of leaving? What is the impact on your finances? What is the impact on your family life and social life? Is this a step up, or are you actually running scared and taking a pay cut out of desperation? So just think about those things. Do that work to make sure that you know you're leaving for the right reasons. And, for reasons that actually can't be solved. I've coached, I can't even count, too many women who have found themselves in jobs that are worse than what they left because they jumped without looking where they were going to land. Now, I don't recommend going from one bad job to a worse job, so please make sure that you are sure that you want to go and it's for the right reasons. But if you are sure, like really, really sure, then I want you to picture this. Picture this. You've done the hard work. You've covered all of your bases. You've done the interviews and you have now been offered your new job. And you're excited and you're nervous and maybe underneath all that, just a little bit emotional and maybe even mentally or even physically tired. But you're still excited. This is it. You are on your way out of this job that you don't like, where you aren't appreciated or paid what you're worth, and you're heading into your new job, or you're leaving to take the next step up in your career that you feel is going to mean big, fantastic things for you personally. Okay, so what do you do now? Like I said before, it's an important milestone. It doesn't matter why you're leaving. It's that point where you are making your decision to leave official. Your resignation is a breakup letter to your boss, letting them know that you don't want to be in an employment relationship with them anymore. And the first place our minds usually go to when it's time to resign is how and when. So let's look at when. Now, you can resign at any point. However, take a beat. However, if you have financial commitments, that mean you need to work, right? Like a mortgage to pay, mouths to feed, then you probably want to resign after you've signed your new contract with your new employer. This way, you have entered into a contractual relationship with your new employer. So if they change their mind before you start, there is a process that protects you. So make sure you read your new employment contract thoroughly and always get an employment specialist or lawyer to read over it as well. Okay, so that is the when, but what about the how? So I've been on both sides of this situation, both as a person resigning and as the HR manager who received the resignations from employees who are resigning. And I can tell you that there is a way to resign that definitely makes it go smoother. And no matter what situation you're leaving, right? There are definitely things you can do, ducks you can line up that make it go smoothly. And it doesn't involve getting caught up in the people-pleasing trap either, by the way. And that is when you start to compromise yourself and your time, trying to control how your manager or other people in the company are going to feel about you leaving. Now, I've been in situations where Once I've resigned, my manager has seen it as a clear signal to overwork me for the final weeks that I was there. Now, that's not fair and it's not right. So don't take on any more that you can handle in your notice period out of guilt or people pleasing. It's just not worth it. I did it out of guilt and people pleasing, and it felt terrible. And it's an easy trap to fall into, actually, especially if you have people pleasing tendencies. And, FYI, I am an expert on people pleasing as a recovering people pleaser myself, so I know how that feels. But it never works because you're doing things that you don't want to do to make other people happy. And newsflash, you don't have the power to make other people feel happy. You don't. You don't have the power to make people feel anything. You can't control how your manager will take the news or how they will feel about it. All you can do is control how you deliver that news and then work to the best of your abilities with the resources and the time that you have left. That's it. The end. People pleasing is another topic that is going to get a whole podcast episode all of its own, because we all do it and we all do it to our own detriment, and it can be career destroying because we are always putting other people's needs ahead of our own when we're doing it. So keep an eye out for that episode. I might even do a free training or something like that about it. Who knows? Anyway, watch this space. But in the 30 odd years that I've been working, I've left many jobs, and no two experiences of resigning for me have been the same. But one thing I did learn is that there are things that you can do in that process to make the transition easier for everyone involved. So here's the thing. If you're a valued member of your team, your manager is not going to want you to go. There's going to be some pressure to stay. You might even be friends with them to a certain extent. So if you want to preserve that relationship, then you showing up as kind and compassionate is going to go a really long way to helping that. So here are 7 things, as promised, that you can do to make your transition out of the company as pain-free and straightforward as possible. Now, hey, you there, multitasking, come back. Grab your pen and paper. Here's the 7 tips. Are you ready? Number 1, be prepared. So it's a good idea to review your employment contract. You need to know how much notice to give for starters. So read your employment contract and work that out and document it very clearly in your letter of resignation. And there might be other obligations in your employment agreement that you need to fulfill as well, or that you even need to just be aware of, like, is there a restraint of trade? Or are you handing back uniform or company equipment? So make sure you have all this sorted and organised and clean and tidy. And if not sorted and organised, at least be aware of what you need to know. And remember to keep a copy of your resignation letter as well. So if you're emailing it, copy in your personal email, CC that in before you hit send. I also recommend, wherever possible, resigning face-to-face. Don't do it in a text. Don't do it in an email. Don't do it in any other form other than face-to-face if possible. And always back it up with your intent to resign in a letter. So they will need it in writing. Okay, number 2, be as honest as you can about why you're leaving. So I always do recommend this. I know it's hard, but if you have a lot of feedback to give, then ask for an exit interview. In my last corporate job, I did a lot of exit interviews, like I performed a lot of them when people were leaving, and the data that we were able to get about the company culture and management methods and styles, it actually was quite invaluable. And as much as we tried to get that feedback from current employees who hadn't left yet, there isn't really the safety there, no matter what sort of culture you have, for someone to be totally honest about their experience working there until they are leaving. Right? I've never been on the receiving end of an exit interview. I do remember asking my manager if we could do an exit interview when I left a company some years ago, and they didn't want my feedback. They weren't interested, which is fine. I had a lot to give, but they didn't want it. I didn't take it personally, but that was my clue right there that I was doing the right thing by leaving, because it was obviously a culture that wasn't robust enough to hear the hard stuff so that they could grow. And that is not a company that I want to work for. So now your honesty, as brutal as it might be, also actually needs to be based in fact and not emotion. It can be an emotional time leaving. It can, especially if you're leaving because you hate that job. There's a lot of emotion there. So make sure you check your big emotions like anger and rage. Check them at the door, please, before giving the feedback in whatever form. Try to remain factual and have evidence if possible to support what you're saying. Now, if you don't feel comfortable giving feedback, or if you've got evidence that it's not safe, it's not a safe environment to give feedback, or if you just get that feeling that it's not going to be safe for you emotionally or physically sometimes even, then don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not compulsory, and it's definitely not something you should do if you think there will be anything negative that will come back on you or come back on anybody who's still in the company. So make sure you protect yourself in this transition. Okay, number 3, be prepared to be asked to leave straight away. So what I mean by this is some employers will put exiting staff that are leaving in key roles like sales roles onto garden leave. Now, here in New Zealand, garden leave is a term that we use to describe a situation where an employee hands in their resignation, and let's just say they have to give 2 weeks notice. Well, they are asked to leave straight away, to immediately hand back company equipment and leave the premises. They aren't required to work out their notice period. They are effectively gone from the office right away, but until their notice period ends, you are still actually an employee. So companies do this for key sales roles and other roles where you have access to valuable information or IP, intellectual property. And as shocking as it can be to be in this position, it is actually completely normal and legal. It's fine. It doesn't mean that you don't get paid for your notice period or any annual leave that you have owing to you. As at the time of recording this, which is July 2023, in New Zealand law, you are still entitled to the remuneration that you would normally receive when you work out your notice period. If you have an employer that is telling you differently, then grab your employment agreement and head to an employment lawyer straight away. Don't pass go. Go and get that sorted. I've been in this situation as an employee that is leaving, and it does come as a shock. So I've been put on garden leave, and I think it was a shock for me because I had taken the time to carefully prepare a handover to a new person. I'd written processes and documents, and I'd planned the projects and tasks that I would be finishing in my last week at the company. So I had it all mapped out in my head. And B, I wasn't in a key role. I didn't have any access to IP or sensitive information. And it turned out, actually, I found out that my manager was really actually just acting out of spite. And I discovered this the hard way because I was told when I handed in my notice on that day that it would be my last day. So that was a shock. I was told I didn't need to come back. and they refused to pay me what I was owed in terms of pay for that notice period, which was only a week, and any outstanding annual leave that I had, which I think it was like a day or two. But it was still my money, right? Now, this was some years ago, and I was a lot younger, and a lot less assertive and confident as what I am now. So if that was me today, there would be no standing for it, right? I would get the help that I need to get the money that I was owed, no matter how much it was. And some employers, though, they use your resignation and leaving the company as a way to punish you. But don't stand for that. That's not right. It's not fair. You can leave a job whenever you want. And just as a side note, about 5 years later, that manager was convicted of fraud and sentenced to jail. So that made me feel a little bit better. But it was still a painful and emotional situation to go through. And I learned a lot about needing to have my own back and standing up for myself, and about employment law, actually. So anyway, it might be that you aren't put on garden leave, but the possibility is there. So I just wanted to bring that up so that you can be planned and prepared as you can be. But if it doesn't go the way that you were expecting, you're planned and prepared for that as well, so that you can just go with the flow. And if your employer puts you on garden leave, see it as an opportunity to take a break before you start your new job. Remember, it's no reflection on you, and it's outside of your control. Okay, so number 4, make a big effort to have as much of your work finished before you go. Now, obviously, if you're put on garden leave, you can't do this. So yay. But if you are working out your notice period, then it's a good strategy to make sure that you have completed as many tasks as possible and have as much of your work up to date. If you can't finish all of your work, document what is left to do. It's a great foundation, right? Having that document is a great foundation for a training and handover plan to the next person. It really does help. It also actually feels really good to get to your last day and have things complete. It's just a nice, tidy, satisfying way to leave. Completing tasks is also a very good source of natural dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone that our brain releases, and it means that you aren't leaving stressed out and rushed. And it also shows your work ethic, which is good to help if you need a reference from the company you are leaving. Okay, tip number 5, come back to me if you're multitasking. Tip number 5, because this is an important one. Clean all personal photos, texts, and data off work devices before you hand them back. Please, for the love of all that is job related, please do this. I could write a book or even record an entire podcast episode on the things I've found on work devices after an employee has handed them back and left. And it is gross. It is not pretty most of the time. It is disgusting. Please don't do it. Please don't. In fact, a good rule of thumb is to never treat your company equipment like it's your personal equipment. So don't have personal apps or photos on your phone. Don't record personal videos on your computer or iPad. A good way to think of it is, if you don't want anybody else to see it, if it's too personal or graphic, don't put it on your computer, your work computer. Nope. Don't. Please keep that stuff on your own personal equipment. It's just not a good look, trust me, and it's not your property, so it's wise to treat it that way. And yes, the IT department will clean it up and reset any device, FYI, probably after they've looked at it. But sometimes there is no IT department, and some poor mug in HR or another manager has to do it. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about that one. Okay, number 6, enjoy your notice period. So, depending on what you're going on to do, what job you're going on to or not, your notice period, it actually can be an emotional roller coaster. And in fact, I think it is anyway, right? I remember being in a job and I was so bored that when I handed in my own notice, I actually asked if I could reduce my hours. I was getting through my daily work by 10 o'clock in the morning, and even though my manager was well aware that I didn't have anything to do, and by well aware, I mean I was constantly asking for more work, the job just didn't fit the hours, and I was so bored, and they didn't seem to care. Now, if you've ever been in a similar situation with that boredom, you know how soul destroying it can be. So I decided to ask if I could reduce my hours to part-time. Now, this worked because I had to give 2 months notice. And they did agree to reduce my hours, mainly because it saved them money as well, and it was a lifesaver for me. And actually, it meant that in my notice period, when I did go to work, I was actually able to enjoy, the tasks in my job because I had shortened hours to do it. So I just got in and got it done. And then I finished for the day, and I had the time for the rest of the day to go and do other things and prepare for my new job. And actually, it was around the time that I did my first life coaching certification back in the early 2000s. So I remember actually being able to finish that quicker as I had more time during the day to study. It was a win-win. But that was that situation. In another situation, in another job, I was leaving because I was moving cities. And so it was the complete opposite experience. I was trying to finish up things at work and get projects finished. And I was packing up a house and trying to organize a new house that was a 6-hour drive away. I don't remember too much about that, but I do remember being exhausted and emotionally drained and feeling very rushed. And I do remember thinking that I was not going to get the opportunity to say goodbye to work colleagues who I adored and was sad to leave. And actually other friends that I had in that city that I'd worked with. So I asked a co-worker to organise a night out for everyone, and we went out to dinner and had some adult lemonades and had a fantastic time. So I outsourced the planning, and it was worth it to get the opportunity to enjoy the company of my work colleagues before I left in that social setting. So whatever the circumstances are, no matter what's happening, no matter how you're leaving, no matter why, I recommend making the most of the time that you do have left and think outside of the box on how you can get that done. And my last tip for you, lastly, I think it's important during this time to give yourself the gift of gratitude. It can be a rushed time. It can be a stressful time. And if you're leaving because you are unhappy, I promise you can still find things to feel grateful for. It might only be the fact that you get paid. Or it might be something else like the coffee machine. They might have a great coffee machine. You're going to miss that and you're grateful for it. Whatever it is, you will feel calmer and more confident if you focus on the things that you've experienced that you feel grateful for. In my last job, the one that I left just before COVID hit, I struggled for a long time to be grateful for any of that experience. When I left, I was burnt out, I was exhausted, and I had experienced bullying and harassment and workplace trauma. So when I left, I just had to get out. I just had to get out of that environment as quickly as I could for my own mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So there wasn't a lot of moments of gratitude. It was actually probably the furthest thing from my mind. However, now that I'm some years out of that job, I can see so many experiences that I'm so completely grateful for. Like the people I met and worked with who have become friends. And one of them is still my closest and dearest friend to this day. And she listens to this podcast. So you know who you are, my friend. A big loving shout out to you. The certificates and conferences that I went to, that improved my skills and experiences. the training. One of them was in Vancouver and another one was in the Gold Coast in Australia. So there were lots of other ones, but for obvious reasons, those two stick out. International travel, love it. And depending on what environment you are leaving and how you are feeling, it might be difficult to feel gratitude for the company. And if that is the case, then I'd like to invite you to take a minute to feel some gratitude for you. Be grateful that you had the strength to leave and the courage to back yourself. Be grateful for the skills and experience that you have that make you employable and valued by another company. Be grateful to the new company that you're going to work for employing you. Snoop Dogg yourself. You would like to thank yourself. Be grateful for yourself. There will be small pockets of gratitude for you. You just have to find them. And tapping into this gratitude and feeling thankful will help you to feel more, even during this emotional roller coaster over time. Even if leaving is a great experience, tapping into some gratitude will help keep you grounded and even and present in the moment so that you can fully experience the transition. And look, gratitude just feels damn good. So I recommend feeling it as much as you can about anything and everything. And if you don't, I also want to say you don't have to speak your gratitude out loud. You don't have to grab a microphone like Snoop Dogg and just thank yourself. It can be just for you. I mean, you do you. If you want to speak it out loud, you go for it. You tell whoever you want. But you don't have to share if you don't want to or if it's not safe to. Some of us do leave jobs that are toxic and we just need to get out safely. So there you go. Those are my 7 tips to help you leave your job with grace. That will help you transition into not being employed by your old company as smoothly as possible. Here they are again quickly. Be as honest as you can be about why you're leaving to take part and why you're leaving. I'm tripping over my words now. Be honest about why you're leaving. Take part in an exit interview if it's offered and if you feel that it's safe. Be prepared. Read your employment agreement carefully so you know what your obligations are. Watch out for garden leave. It can take you by surprise. It can be a bit of a shock if you aren't expecting it, but it is normal. Make sure you get paid properly too. If you're not sure, consult an employment lawyer. Get as much work done before you go and leave good notes for handover. Clean all personal data of company equipment, please, like laptops and phones. Enjoy your notice period if you can. Try and find things to be grateful for. And if it takes some time before you do that, that's okay. Don't give yourself a hard time. Look, at the end of the day, leaving a job is a different experience for everyone. And like I said, in my time, I've had a variety of experiences when leaving a company. No two have been the same. But it is a relationship that is ending. So you are going to feel something, I promise. It can be an exciting time of cutting ties to the old and embracing the new. It can be the relief of leaving a toxic environment and facing the overwhelming job of recovering from burnout or workplace trauma. However it looks, whatever experience you have or have had in the past, I want you to remember this. You are exceptional. You really are. You have gifts that the world needs, gifts that you deliver into the world in a way that is unique to you. You can do hard things. You do hard things all the time. Doing hard things is the key to growth and having a life that is as exceptional as you are. You deserve a job that makes you happy and meets all your needs and that pays you what you are worth. You have the power to change your job whenever you want. So don't let anyone or anything stand in your way. Are you ready? Hey there, are you ready to know exactly why you can't make any progress in your career? If you've been working hard and are feeling burnt out and trapped, but you're not sure why or you don't even know where to start to make positive change, then I've got you covered. Imagine what it would be like if you could earn the salary that you want, feel energized by what you do, and be free of self-doubt. And I'm here to tell you that you can. Your lack of confidence might be holding you back, and you might not even know it, so let's fix that. Click the link in the show notes to get my free masterclass on the 3 ways your lack of confidence sabotages your career and how to turn it around and get the salary you deserve. Inside, you'll learn the 3 key ways you might be sabotaging your own career, how these show up for even the most accomplished and self-aware woman just like you and me, and how to get your mojo back, reclaim the power in your career, and start finally earning the salary that you deserve. Born out of the blood, sweat and tears of going through this myself and the hundreds of hours of coaching women just like you to their own career success, the 3 ways I'm teaching in this training are little known and hardly talked about. So head over to the show notes now and click the link to get the free and instant access to this masterclass.